This is the Louie Tee Network.
I'm ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
Overtime! And we head to overtime.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie Tee? Welcome to Thursday Night Football Overtime. How you not going to be ready for your own live feed? I hit the button at the wrong time. I didn't change the scores or the records. That was hilarious to me because I'm in control of when this thing starts. And I hit the button and I'm like looking around like, hey, I didn't tell you to turn the camera on. You're talking to yourself, man. You just turned the camera on yourself, dummy. Anyway, welcome to the program. I, of course, am your man, Louie Tee. Here to break down this Thursday night game, NFC South family business. You know how it goes. If those two teams say they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. And it got a little dicey at the end for the Carolina Panthers, much like last week. But this time, they were able to prevail. We'll talk about this game, break it down in its entirety here in a second. But first and foremost, let me welcome all of you to the Louie Tee Network. If you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content in 2016 and beyond. We're changing the game over here. I want you to be a part of that by hitting that red subscribe button to help us change the game here on the Louie Tee Network. I'm also on Twitter. @InTheLabRoom is the Twitter handle. Again, that's the best and most effective and efficient way to keep up with what's going on this channel. When I go live, you'll get that notification. If you follow me on Twitter and turn on your notifications, you will know exactly when I go live and know when you need to come join us here on these live feeds. Also, I am on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. All of my social media platforms right there next door. Check them out. Make sure that you like the Facebook page, you follow me on Twitter, and of course, first and foremost, you subscribe to the Louie Tee Network on YouTube. So let's go ahead and break this game down, man. And a lot of injuries for the Panthers. They were already struggling with injuries coming into the game, both teams for that matter. Saints starting to get a little bit more healthy, whereas the Panthers still struggling with some injuries. But nonetheless, a lot of injuries leaving this game for the Carolina Panthers. But they get the most important thing, and that's the W here. You hope that they can lick their wounds while getting this W. Meanwhile, for the Saints, it felt like they didn't come ready to play early in this game. And I didn't even feel like they had a sense of urgency in the second half, down 20, when they needed to have it. We'll talk about all those things as we jump into likes, dislikes, banana in the tailpipe. Like, dislike, banana in the tailpipe.
What y'all, the second team?
We're the first team.
Yeah, we're not gonna fall for a banana in the tailpipe.
You're not gonna fall for the banana in the tailpipe?
All right, so let's jump into the breakdown of this football game and talk about all the things that took place in this game. You know how we like to do it here. Likes, dislikes, banana in the tailpipe. Start with the likes in the first half from the road team in this game. That would be the New Orleans Saints. And the first thing that jumped off the screen that probably everybody watching, the Color Rush uniforms. We talked about all the Color Rush unis in the preseason when it was first revealed. And we talked about how, you know, all of these jerseys looked and what we thought were the best ones. And so far, the best Thursday night combination has been Broncos-Chargers. That was about 6-7 weeks ago. Broncos were traveling to San Diego, AFC West family business, and those throwback or those color rushes were off the chains, both of them. And I actually thought that the Broncos were going to have ugly ones. Theirs was actually pretty nice. Chargers were excellent. And so that whole color scheme was just outstanding with those two teams. That was a perfect mesh there. In this game, the Saints stole the show with their color rush unis. That white on white. White on white is always clean and crispy. But to throw that splash of gold in there, took the cake. Saints really did it up big with those color rush unis. We had already seen and been exposed to the Panthers and their blue on blue last Thanksgiving. And that's not an uncommon combination for them anyhow. So it's not like they were really changing the game with that in any event. But nonetheless, actually talking football now, Saints first half likes. The sudden change defense at the beginning of the game. You get the fumble on the very first possession by Drew Brees. Thought he held onto the football way too long. And to compound matters, you can't fumble after you stay in a pocket well after it's time to go. And Drew Brees has that alarm in his head. That clock went off. He knew he needed to get out, and he just didn't. And Mario Addison, who has been on a tear of late, hits the football, gets Brees down on the ground, and scoops it up. So, in effect, he gets the hat trick, sack, forced fumble, and recovery. And so you're thinking, okay, this is not a great start. This is a very ominous start for the Saints in this game as they give it up on the first possession, give up some great field position, and they get all the way down to the 1 yard line, do the Carolina Panthers, and Ted Ginn Jr. looks like it's a touchdown. They rule it a touchdown. They go back. It's clearly not a touchdown. They come back after replay and say, hey, he's down at the 1. And you think, okay, this is a foregone conclusion. Either Cam's going to get in or Jonathan Stewart's going to get in. No Jay Stu touchdown, no Cam touchdown. As a matter of fact, they start going in reverse. They take a sack. They have to settle for a field goal. And then reckless-ass Kenny Vaccaro, and I talk about Kenny all the time. I like Kenny, but Kenny is reckless as hell, comes in and roughs the kicker. So it gives the Panthers new life again. And they get right down there again. And this time they get sacked and pushed back again and have to settle for another field goal. Great sudden change D by the New Orleans Saints. Not once, but twice on that first possession to force the Panthers to have to kick a field goal. And then I thought also in the first half, despite giving up 17 points in the second quarter and being down 20-3 at the half, I thought the Saints pass rush was impressive in the first half. Cam Newton wasn't comfortable. And if you look at his numbers, Cam Newton's numbers were trash can in this game. They were straight garbage. But when he needed to make the play at the end of the game, he did. We'll talk about that when we get there. But the pass rush had a lot to do with those inconsistencies and those incomplete passes. They batted down a number of his passes early in the ball game. They also were able to get to him and sack him a number of times in the first half. And remember, they're coming off of a game when they got 6 sacks last week. And I talked about this Saints pass rush a week ago. It's getting better and better every week. You saw it in this game again in the first half. Even though, again, they gave up a ton of points in the first half. It wasn't all the defense's fault. Again, you get 2 turnovers, you get the block punt, and all of a sudden now you give up 17 points in the second quarter. And if you want to talk about the first points of the game, the field goal, that also is charged to the account of the offense because they turned that over. So you're talking about points off of turnovers. Really, this defense didn't do much wrong in the first half. So I thought the pass rush of the Saints, that's starting to come along. They're starting to do some good things there. I like that with the New Orleans Saints. Let's go to the first half likes for the Carolina Panthers in this game. Mario Addison, I already talked about it. Strip, sack, forced fumble, and the recovery. You can't do much better than that other than scoop it up and score with it if you're Mario Addison. And like I said, he's been on a tear of late. Had 2 sacks in this game before he went down with an injury. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But that was a big play early in the game. You would have loved to have seen Carolina get 7 out of that, but they didn't. They got a field goal. Had 2 cracks at it. Get a second chance. Get a mulligan after the roughing the kicker still can't get in the end zone. Kurt Coleman with an interception. That was a wobbly duck thrown by Drew Brees and Kurt Coleman. Johnny on the spot picks it off. Gets a solid return. That leads to a 1-yard Jay Stu touchdown to give the Panthers their first touchdown of this game at 10-3. Vernon Butler with a field goal block. Huge play is another like in the first half of this game. That was a tremendous play because at the time it's 13-3. Saints have a chance to cut it to a 1-score game. And all of a sudden, if they go into the halftime breakdown 13-6, they haven't played that well, but they're only down a touchdown. It's a totally different ball game. Instead, Vernon Butler, the rookie, steps up, makes a huge play, blocks the field goal attempt. It's scooped up by Luke Kuechly. It should have been a touchdown. Dumb play by your other rookie, James Bradbury. What are you doing? We're going to talk about that when we get to the dislikes. I'm not going to harp on that right now. But that leads, because of the penalty, driving them back to the 40-yard line, essentially, that leads to the best throw of the game by Cam Newton. And it's not the most important throw. We know what that is. We'll talk about that when we get there. But this is the best throw of the night by Cam Newton. Again, he didn't have many completions, only 14 on the night with over 30-some-odd attempts. But this was by far and away his best throw. under pressure, okay? It's not like he had a clean pocket, got to step up and throw. He was under duress. Like I said, Saints pass rush was heavy in the first half, and he throws an absolute dime back of the end zone, the Teddy ball game. And I had talked about this, I say, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe against the Rams, where I said, this is the problem with the Panthers offense right now. They're not getting the big plays that they got a season ago. The thing about the offense last year was so dynamic because, A, the run game was outstanding, which it hasn't been, and you stayed relatively healthy, so the blocking up front was tremendous. But also, I thought something else that was even bigger than the run game standing out, and I think the run game was the catalyst for those big shots down the field because you had to come up and protect against Cam running or Jay Stu running or whomever, and all of a sudden now Ted Ginn Jr., Philly Fingers, one of these guys is behind you in the secondary making a huge play. That hasn't been the case this year. And Ted Ginn not having a touchdown 11 weeks into the season is indicative of how far this offense has fallen in terms of big plays and the ability to quick strike teams like they were able to do a season ago. And so that was a huge play. Great catch, initially ruled incomplete. Teddy ball game, able to get both feet inbounds and secure the football. Thought it was a magnificent catch. An even better throw. I just thought that was exactly how you draw it up there. I mean, you can't throw it much better, can't make a better play on it than he did to get both feet down back of the end zone and not have the ball move at all. Thought it was an exceptional play on both ends by quarterback and receiver, and that's a 20-3 halftime lead. But we saw this same exact story last week versus Kansas City. You make a big play right before the half. It was Funches last week. It was Ginn this week. That gives you a big lead going into the halftime break. That gave you a 17-0 lead last week. This gives you a 20-3 lead at half this week. And so you're talking about the same 17-point lead. How are you going to handle it going into the second half? That was going to be the question. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Let's get to these dislikes. We go back to the Saints, and we're now in the first half again. And so Drew Brees fumbling on the first possession. You got to get out of the pocket there. You can't stand there. And if you're going to stand there and you're going to get sacked, you need to make sure you hold on to the football. I thought Brees just stayed in the pocket way too long. He knows better than that. Roughing the kicker on Kenny Vaccaro. I hate when guys do things like this. It's 3 points. I know you want to block it. How often? I always ask this question when some dum-dum comes off the corner flying out of control recklessly and roughs the kicker. I always ask the same question. How many times have you seen that guy off the far edge block a kick without being offsides? When's the last time you saw that executed flawlessly without a penalty where that guy gets his hands on the football? If a kick is blocked 99.9% of the time in this league, it's up the middle, whether it's a guy leaping over the top or it's a guy getting his hand up like Vernon Butler did to block the field goal at the end of the first half for the Saints. It's never the guy off the edge. They let him come in free for a reason because you got so far to go. The operation is supposed to happen a lot faster than you're going to be able to get in there and make a play. So why are you screaming off the edge like you're about to make a play? Like you running a 4 flat and you're going to get there before they can even get the football off. What are you doing? Just let them kick the damn field goal if you're coming off the edge, man. Good gracious. Luckily enough for Kenny Vaccaro, the Saints defense went out, made plays, and forced that field goal to be kicked yet again. Coby Fleener, third down drop on the second possession of the game. I was ready to come out and say nothing good happens when Coby Fleener is throwing the football. He's been a big disappointment with this Saints offense this season. You thought he was going to come in and be what Benjamin Watson was for you last year. No, he hasn't been. He's been a very big disappointment in my mind. I don't know how Saints fans feel about Coby Fleener. I haven't been impressed with him at all this season, but he did come back and catch the football on a tough stick throw by Brees late in this game to close the gap to within 4, pinning the extra point, which we can't just automatically give the Saints anymore after what happened to him last week. But you can't drop that football there on third down, man. It's a crucial play. Third downs are huge in this league. That's how you score touchdowns and not settle for field goals. He drops that football. They end up having. And yes, he got hit. Secure the football. Don't drop it. Hold on to it. How often do you see Jason Witten drop the football in that situation? The good tight ends around this league, how often does Greg Olsen drop that football? The good tight ends around this league don't drop that football on third down. That's a catch. You move the sticks, and you find a way to get into the end zone a couple plays later. That's generally what happens with the good teams in the league. But with Kobe Fleener on the other end of that pass, it's a drop, and you got to settle for a field goal there. Drew Brees with a wobbly throw that gets picked off by Kurt Coleman. I just don't know what happened. It looked like the ball just slipped out of his hand. You're not accustomed to seeing the ball come out of his hands. Normally, Brees is good for a tight spiral. If that was a tight spiral, that's not picked off. But because it hung in the air, because it was a wobbly duck that got shot out of the air, it got picked off, and that led to the Panthers' first touchdown of the game. So again, turnovers hurting you. The first 10 points of the game by the Carolina Panthers, all resulting from turnovers by the Saints. Got to be a little bit more careful with the football than that on the road in the division if you want to win. Von Bell with the late hit penalty on Cam Newton. Bro, what are you doing? No, seriously, what are you doing? This man is 5 yards out of bounds, and then you're going to push him, and then you got a nerve to put your hands up like, hey, man, I didn't touch him. Come on, man. This is not Ohio State, bro. Stop your nonsense. Not smart football. Not smart football. That's some low football IQ stuff right there. So speaking of a rookie with a low football IQ, I don't know if Murphy is a rookie anymore. I remember him coming out of Missouri in the 7th round. Was it this past draft? I thought it was 2 drafts ago, but whatever the case may be, this is right here. This is some low football IQ stuff right here. The football is going out of bounds at the 1, okay? You're going to get this at the 40. That's some bomb field position, if I may say so myself. This young man thinks it's a great idea to try to catch it as it's going out of bounds. First of all, that's a no-no. You don't do that. Let it go out of damn bounds. The worst case scenario there is that it bounces and it goes into the end zone and it's a touchback. Either way, you're still getting the football at the 25 at worst. The one thing you don't do here is try to catch it and drop it and let it fall out of bounds, and now you get it at the 1 yard line. Don't do that. Also, what you could have done, and if you knew the rules, you could do this, stand out of bounds and touch the football. Now the ball is out of bounds. Now you get it at the 40-yard line. But, of course, this is a young boy. He don't know no better. Let the damn ball go out of bounds, son. Damn. And finally, the blocked field goal, man. To me, this was the perfect way for the first half to end for the Saints because there was so many F-ups by the Saints in that first half. To only be down by 7 at 13-6 if they would have made that field goal would have been a travesty. They made so many mistakes in that first half. Look at all the things I just mentioned. To just be down 7, that would have been almost like stealing. So that blocked field goal was like football justice being served, and now they were down 20-6 instead of 13-6. And luckily enough for the Panthers, that blocked field goal happened because if it didn't, and that 10-point swing never took place, they probably lose this football game because they struggled mightily in the second half. So a lot of mistakes, a lot of dislikes for the Saints in the first half as they were down 20-3 at the halftime break. You go to the first half dislikes for the Panthers. The red zone 0 on the first possession of the game. You can't get to the 1 and then end up on the 11-yard line, 3rd and goal from the 11. That can't happen, but it did. I don't know what the hell Cam Newton was doing on the sack where he runs the opposite way and runs into a defender. I don't know what he was doing there. Then you get a mulligan because Kenny Vaccaro decides he wants to play bowling and knock down all the pins, which includes the kicker Graham Gano. So, okay, fine. You get a mulligan. You get the ball back at like the 3-yard line, 4-yard line, and you do it all over again. You get sacked again, and don't ask me. It was just some bad execution down there. And so that to me was just sloppy and uncoordinated, and I don't know what the hell was going on there. I didn't like it. The return of Philly Fingers. He's back. Easy ass catch. Cam hit him right between the 1 and the 0. And Philly Fingers, which is why he's Philly Fingers, dropped the goddamn football. Of course, I'm talking about downtown Philly Brown, a.k.a. Philly Fingers. And this is why he's Philly Fingers right here. Dropping the goddamn ball on 3rd down, you got to settle for a field goal. 13-3. Catch the ball. James Bradbury with the blocking and bat negating a touchdown return by Luke Kuechly on the blocked field goal. Bruh, what are you doing? What are you doing? See, this is why you can't bring the young fellas nowhere. You can't take, I always talk about this every year. on the primetime stage, bright lights, big stage, leave the young fellas at home because they don't know how to act. The young fellas don't know no better. And so when you put them in front of the cameras and all these bright lights, they start acting a damn fool. Why are you pushing, of all people, the kicker in the back as he's 10 yards away from catching Luke Key? He's not catching Luke. Come on, man. Did you really just need to hit somebody that bad that you had to do something so stupid and foolish? How many times have I mentioned the young fellas in this game? Von Bell. I don't know if Murphy's a rookie. I don't think he is, but Murphy, James Bradbury, these young boys, I tell you. Luckily, Vernon Butler stood up for the young fellas by making a huge play. Damn, boy, these young boys. I tell you, man, you put them on this stage and they don't know how to act. Anyway, luckily enough for James Bradbury, the very next play, Ted Ginn Jr., touchdown from Cam Newton. All is forgiven. All is forgotten. 20-3 at half. Let's go back to the Saints and the likes. Now we're in the second half. And for me, it's 17 unanswered points to close the gap to within 3 at 23-20 in this ball game. They look like they were dead. And I left them for dead. And the lack of urgency, the lack of tempo and pace. These boys were down by 2 scores. First of all, you went for it on 4th down twice on that first field goal possession in the 4th quarter. Or it was in the 3rd quarter. You ended up kicking the field goal to start the 4th. How you not going to go for the 4th down? And I understand it's like 4th and 6 or 4th and 9, something like that. I understand it's different than 4th and 1 the first 2 times you picked it up. But damn, you went for it on 4th down twice. You really going to kick a field goal now? You still down 3 scores? Like, I didn't understand that, but okay. So I just, we'll get to that. I don't want to spoil that for when we get to the dislikes. 17 unanswered points to get this game within 3, huge. Because at one point it looked like they were dead. Dead in the water, left for dead. And they somehow, some way climbed their way back into this game. And I'm telling you right now, if they would have got the football back to Drew Brees without giving up that first down, they were going to win this game or at least tie this bad boy up and send it to overtime. But in my mind, I'm thinking if they got a punt damn near from their own end zone, I got a feeling that this game's going to be over because Drew Brees is going to take these boys down the field to get a touchdown. So, those 17 unanswered points were huge. You go to the Panthers and their likes in the second half of this game. Mike Pilardi with a punt with 8 minutes and 3 seconds left in the 4th quarter to flip the field position. Wow. Who knew? Mike Pilardi straight from the couch coming in and doing work. That was a huge kick because he kicked the first. There was a punt earlier in the game where he kicks it and he angles it out of bounds. And it was a hell of a kick. And the Saints are going to have to start at their own 13-yard line. And then you have a ineligible downfield. So they got to do it again. And all of a sudden, the Saints get the ball right around the 38. So you're talking about 25 yards of field position. That changed. And I'm like, damn, I don't know if he's going to be able to kick that ball like that again the rest of the game. And when they needed it the most, this man damn near kicked a 60-yard punt. Then you get a block in the back tacked on top of it. And it just flipped the entire field position because, again, the Saints, they were slow playing it, man. Those boys were slow strolling it down the field. They had no sense of urgency. So with that flipping of the field position, the 56-yard punt, and then the subsequent block in the back, you're talking about 70 yards of field position essentially flipped on the left leg of Mike Pilardi. That was a huge play in this game because the Saints did go down and get point. I think they ended up even having a punt in that possession. So that was just a huge kick by Pilardi at a time when the Panthers were starting to play the clock. They weren't playing the Saints anymore. Every time I looked at Cam Newton, he was looking up at that clock. Stop playing the clock. Stop watching the clock. Start playing the Saints. They weren't doing that in the second half, and so that was a huge kick. And also, 3rd down conversion to KB with 2 minutes and 24 seconds left in the 4th quarter. Obviously, the play of the game. Because without that play, Drew Brees is getting his hands on the football again. And he's going to get his hands on the football with about a timeout left and about 2 minutes and some change left and great field position. They're going to win this football game. They were going to win this game. Instead, you force them to use their final timeout. You run the football a couple more times, and you punt it to them with 14 seconds left. And they pick up a holding penalty to boot. So that was a huge play, the biggest play of the game. Probably minus the block field goal. But again, all of that stuff is rendered irrelevant once this catch was made by Kelvin Benjamin on that third down late in this ballgame. Like I said, Cam Newton did not have a strong game at all. In fact, his numbers were straight garbage. But with the game on the line, he stepped up in the pocket and made a hell of a throw to Kelvin Benjamin, who climbed the ladder and got the football, took a shot, held on to it, converted, and that proved to be the difference in this game. You go to the second half dislikes for the Saints in this ball game. Brandon Coleman with a third down drop. Right when the Saints were getting back into this game, they cut the lead to 10. He catches this football, and that's the possession where they ended up having to punt. If he catches this football, they're going to score a touchdown on that drive. If they don't score a touchdown on that drive, they're at least getting a field goal, and that is going to cut this lead to a one-score game. And remember, they get the touchdown later in the game to Kobe Fleener. So now you're talking about a tie game instead of being down 3. So that was a huge turn of events. Trey Boston comes over and kind of jacks him up a little bit, but he had the football until he hit the ground, and the ball was then dislodged by the impact of the ground. So you would love to have seen Coleman hold on to that, but he did not. Saints' lack of tempo and running the ball down 10. Let's talk about this, because even though it didn't bite them in the ass, it just, and I thought that Collinsworth and Michaels did a great job of talking about, and they did a nice job of dressing this pig up, putting lipstick on it. They called it being methodical. It's the same way where you see somebody that's cheap as hell and you say, man, that dude is frugal. Nah, he cheap, man. This wasn't methodical. I'm like, hey, you're down 10. Let's speed this thing up. Hey, you're down 17. Let's speed this up. You're down 23-6. And every play is a run. Every play is a check down to Tim Hightower. Hey, let's speed this thing up. You still huddling? We in the fourth quarter. You down 10. Hey, let's speed this thing up. You still running with 6 minutes left in the game? And you still huddling? What the hell is going on? What's going on out there? I was lost, because I'm like, they do know they're down 10, right? They do know they need 2 scores, not 1, right? They do know that running the football is helping the Panthers. They do know that huddling is helping the Panthers, right? But it turned out to work out in their favor because, like I said, and like Collinsworth and Michael said, it was a methodical approach that got them down the field, and they ultimately did start to speed things up later in the ball game. They got in the end zone, and so all of a sudden, what was a 10-point lead turned into a 3-point lead. So I just felt like they could have sped this thing up, and it would have gave them more opportunities, maybe even another possession. Maybe that football late in the game isn't punted to you and you don't receive it with 14 seconds left if you moved with a little bit more sense of urgency earlier in the game when you actually could have made a difference in saving a little bit of time. I just thought they were kind of slow strolling it. And I'm like, hey, you down by multiple scores. Turn this up. You got Drew Brees. Let's go. I never felt that from the Saints in the second half of this game. Carolina Panthers second half dislikes. Most of them are injuries, man. They lose center Ryan Khalil. I thought the offense went to hell in a handbasket once he got injured. The second he left the game, they didn't have their backup center because he was already out. And then you got to turn to a guard that you just basically say, hey, man, we need you tonight. And he didn't look anything like a center. He didn't look comfortable at all. There was one play made by Nick Fairley where he didn't even get out of his stance and Fairley split him and the guard and got in the backfield and hit Jay Stu. And luckily, Jay Stu didn't fumble the football because he didn't even have a chance on that play. So that new center, he was funky, and I don't think they trusted him all that much. There were a couple of snaps where Cam had to wait and he had to go down and dig it out. And so they really were content with just having Cam get under center and just hand it off. They didn't really want to put Cam in situations where the Saints could pin back their ears and come after him because he wasn't going to be able to set the line protections. It was a really sloppy second half offensively, and I think a lot of that had to do with the injury to Ryan Khalil at center, and that's a re-aggravation of the shoulder injury that had kept him out the last couple of games. So you got to keep tabs on that, and you're hoping he's not going to be gone for the next couple of games again. But anytime a guy comes back from an injury and then re-aggravates it, it's usually not good news. The Teddy ball game muff. Okay, this one didn't hurt you. He actually recovers this, but don't give the game away. Come on, guys. You know better than that. Mario Addison, I talked about him at the top of the program with the forced fumble in the first possession of the game. He ends up injuring himself, and they said it was a foot injury. He had ice on it. He wasn't coming back. Could be an ankle, could just be a foot. Either way, it's a devastating injury to a defensive line that was starting to get better and better in the last few weeks. And he was the guy that was spearheading that rush. And now all of a sudden he's injured now. So you're down another big-time player for you defensively. And then the Luke Kuechly injury, it was heartbreaking to see this man literally sobbing on the field. You know how when you used to get a beating back in the day and you wanted to stop crying and you couldn't, you get the little sniffles and you're trying to stop crying and you can't. That's like he couldn't control himself. They said it was a concussion. I don't know if I'm buying that. Kind of looked like a hyperextension. Then it looked like he kind of fell awkwardly. How many times you seen a dude get a concussion and needed to be carted off the field? When the last time you seen that happen? Hell, Mark Ingram was out cold on the field and he got up and walked off. So I don't know if I'm buying the whole concussion deal, but if they say it's a concussion, I'm going to just believe them. And okay, it's a concussion, whatever you say. I remember seeing the man get on the cart. I saw him pick his leg up as if he couldn't let it go up there by itself and just move it on its own. He had to move it with his hands. I'm thinking, but then he stood up and he got on the cart himself. So I don't know. Maybe it is a concussion. He's had quite a few throughout his career, but in any event, that's heartbreaking to see a guy that loves the game, is that passionate, boo-hooing essentially on the field, man. Anytime you see a grown man crying, something serious is going on. So that's very tough. And for the Panthers, he's the heart and soul of your defense. I mean, you got to have this guy back. And this isn't like last year where other guys was just going to step up and make plays. You're 4-6. Like, you can't afford Luke Kuechly to be out of the lineup for the next 2 or 3 weeks with a concussion or a leg injury. Whatever it is, it seemed bad because he was crying. So we'll see what happens there. But Panthers get the win, 23-20. It was not a pretty finish. Great start, just like last week. Terrible finish. At least this week, though, you're able to salvage the victory and get to 4-6 on the season for the Saints. Tough loss, 2 weeks in a row. This time you dug yourself a hole. I felt like the intensity that you needed to win this game wasn't there. You made a boatload of mistakes in the first half that put you in a hole. You gave up 17 points in the second quarter en route to a 20-3 deficit at halftime. You can't do that on the road. You can't turn it over twice and then have a block field goal and expect to win anything. And then you score 17 in the fourth quarter, but it just seemed like you just weren't moving with a sense of urgency that is necessary for a team down by 3 scores in the fourth quarter. But that being said, both teams leave this game at 4-6. A lot of work to be done in a division where the Atlanta Falcons are 6-4 and still seem like the cream of the crop in this division. We'll talk a little bit more about what needs to be done for these two teams in order to make a move in this division a little bit later on in this breakdown as we jump into where this game was won.
But wake her ass up! We're gonna win tomorrow!
Winning, 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 winning.
For me, where this game was won was when the Saints had their field goal blocked in the first half. I mean, for all of the mistakes they made in the first half, if that field goal isn't blocked and it goes through the uprights, it's 13-6. The Panthers have had trouble in the second half of the last 2 ball games scoring. So you'd like to take your chances knowing that. And maybe they call the game differently. Maybe Mike Shula doesn't be as conservative in the second half if they're not up 20-3 and they would get the first half, first possession of the second half, and they would move it down the field and get a field goal to make it 23-3. Maybe he's not as conservative if they don't have that cushion. Maybe he's a little bit more aggressive. Who knows? I don't know the answer to that, but I will say this. That blocked field goal and the subsequent touchdown that followed was huge for the Panthers. It gave them the lead. It gave them a cushion that they could enjoy for the remainder of the game. And it also sucked the life out of the New Orleans Saints. I thought it took them literally the entire third quarter to rebound from that blocked field goal. And I never thought they really recovered from that blocked field goal. And so to me, where this game was won for the second week in a row for the New Orleans Saints, I thought the game was turned on a blocked field goal. And last week it was an extra point. This week is an actual field goal. Either way, the Saints special teams have let them down 2 consecutive weeks. Now, let's get to your comments. Let's talk about what you saw in this game let's wrap this Thursday night football contest up.
What the hell?
Yo, the sign is real simple, B. It says wrap it up. Wrap that shit up, B.
So let's get to your comments. And I see a ton of them. So let's see what you guys have to say. Captain Spartan 04 says, upset with my Louisville Cardinals. The offensive line forgot how to pass block, gave up 11 sacks, some on Lamar, but still. Yeah, that was a brutal ass whooping. Didn't watch much of that game. Didn't need to because I saw the first half and I already knew what time it was. Andrew Kim says, sucks for Luke Kuechly and his potential concussion. Do the Panthers have a chance to come out with a win streak and have a chance for the playoffs in spite of all their injuries they sustained? No. I told you I left them for dead a couple weeks back when they lost. Break before, I think it was the Tampa game. No, it was the Saints game right before the bye when they lost. I left them for dead then. You know, you can't dig yourself that kind of a hole. They needed to beat Tampa is what they needed to do. And Cam Newton missed that game. That's the one game he needed to play because you would have liked to have thought that they could beat Tampa with Derek Anderson, but Derek Anderson pissed that game away and they ended up losing. That was a dagger, but the next week against New Orleans, 41-38, that was a dagger too. If they were going to have any chance of riding the ship, they needed to beat Kansas City last week. That one was the one that really you said, okay, yeah, they're dead now. Because instead of them being 5-5 right now, and a game out of first place, which would have been remarkable, they're still 2 games back. And they already lost to the Falcons this season. And now you got all these injuries. And like I said, I don't see a second half meltdown of the season for the Falcons this year. I think they're actually playing good football still. Even though they lost to the Eagles, I still think that this is a good team. They're going to get some of their stuff back after the bye. Tevin Coleman's going to be back. They're going to be in a much better shape. And they needed that bye week. They were desperate for that bye. Now they got it. And I think they're going to come back a better football team. I just don't see the Panthers being able to put together the type of run it's going to take. They make too many mistakes. They're not the same team, and they got too many injuries. Nick Riley says, really thought Kuechly injury was something with his knee where concussion isn't good at all, but it got to be happy it's not his knee if you're a Panthers fan. I was thinking the same thing. I don't know if you got to be happy because concussions are serious business, and you have enough of them and they start to accumulate. You start thinking about long-term health for this guy. But, yes, I thought it was something with his knee as well. I mean, you see a guy crying like that, and you're thinking the worst, like he's just torn something. Because players know, guys know when something's really wrong. They know their bodies. They can feel the pain. Guys generally react like that when something is really wrong, when they know, okay, I'm done for the season. Then the emotions come out, all the work you put in, all of the things you've done to put yourself in a position to help your team, and now you can't, you're helpless. That's what you thought. But if it's just a concussion, and I'm still questioning that it's just a concussion, but if it's just a concussion, I'm not saying it's good news, but it could have been a lot worse. That's for sure. Andrew Kim says, man, Michael Thomas was almost invincible this game. I think you meant invisible, and yes, he was. Don't let the numbers fool you. I think he ended up with like 5 catches for 68 yards or something like that. Like 25 to 30 of them came on the last play of the game when they dumped it down to him. And instead of him pitching it around, he just decided to run up the field and get tackled and end the game. He had one diving catch that was impressive. But yeah, for a guy that has been tearing it up over the last month and a half, he damn near was invisible in this game. First name, last name says, what do you think the Saints should do with their special teams? It's got to be better. For one, you need to make sure that these boys are schooled in the rules of the game. Can't have Marcus Murphy back there dropping the football out of bounds at the 1-yard line. That's not smart. That's low football, IQ football. And I can't go for it because that's avoidable. The blocks, you just got to be better. You gotta be better up front. And they're just not right now. Now, the jumping over the top, that's just happenstance. You got guys that are athletic, that can make plays. I even heard somebody say that there was a holding penalty that wasn't called where one of the defenders held down the offensive lineman so he couldn't get his hand up to clip Justin Simmons last week. It's irrelevant. This week it wasn't a guy jumping over the top. It was just a low trajectory kick. Get the football up. It's just too many mistakes right now on special teams. Not really one thing you can pinpoint and say they need to do this, they need to do that. It's just be better on special teams. It's as simple as that. Nick Riley says, hey, boy, back at it again with the right score. I see you, fam. Yeah, that was a really bad start to the last program. That's why I had to start over because, like I said, how you going to start your own program when it starts on you? Like, you started. Nobody else is starting this. It is not like YouTube said, all right, you got to start right now. It's 11:30. You got to start. Bro, this is on you. And I hit the button, and I'm like, oh, shit, I'm not ready. Wait, I hit the button? Yeah, you hit the button, dummy. Go. And I'm looking around like, oh, wait, the score is not right. I'm going to start. Nah, I'm going to go. No, we got to start this over, man. It was bad. But, yeah, I'm back like cook crack with the right score, right records, all of that, man. Andrew Kim says, I noticed that most of the Panther starters on offense are from Ohio State, Oregon, or Oregon State, obviously besides Newton and from Auburn and other offensive linemen. Yeah, it's sometimes it's weird that way, but it's not a coincidence a lot of times when you see that because GMs, they scout certain areas a little bit heavier than others. Like if you get one good player from a school, you're more inclined to go back to that school again to get another player if you've had success with the guy earlier. So it's not uncommon to see that happen. And then also, if you've got scouts in that area, and let's say you go somewhere to scout one player, and while you're there, you just happen to unearth another guy that you're really in love with. You're like, hey, man, we went here to watch this offensive guard, but while we were there, we saw this tackle that's pretty good too. He may go undrafted. We might be able to scoop him up. Those things tend to happen. So it's not a coincidence when you see things like that, when you see multiple players from one school. If you have success and a lot of GMs have philosophies like the Redskins GM, Scott McCloughan, he says, look, if I got a choice between a big school kid and a small school kid, and they're pretty much on an even playing field in terms of their skill level, their talent, and all of that stuff, I'm taking a kid that played at a big school. It's not a coincidence. GMs have philosophies that they live by, and so it's not an accident that those guys come from some of the same schools. Sin Day Co says, if your team has not been decimated by injuries in key positions, add that to the list of things you should be thankful for next week. I think that is a beautiful statement. Well said. And yes, remember the I'm thankful for list you used to have to make in elementary school? Write down all the things that you're thankful for, Timmy. And I would have wrote that down on my list, man. I just want to be thankful for my team not having a ton of injuries. Yeah, that is something to be thankful for. If you are fortunate enough to have a team that hasn't been met by the injuries this season on a number of different occasions. Sin Day Co says, hard to watch a warrior like Luke Kuechly go down. My hopes for 9-7, a winning season, hangs by a thread. Injuries is the real difference between this year and last. And well said. I mean, injuries can change the game so quickly, it's not even funny. I mean, look at the Minnesota Vikings. They were able to start 5-0 despite the injuries, but they had more injuries. And at some point, you get to your injury threshold where you're like, damn, how many dudes you want me to keep trying to pull up off the streets, or how much depth you looking for me to have? It's tough. It's tough when you have the amount of injuries that some of these teams have had this season. And it's tough to win despite the injuries. At some point, they're going to catch up with you. I don't care how much depth you have. You keep having injuries at the same positions, it's going to catch up with your football team. Moving right along, Nick Riley says, man, the Saints just keep giving up those blocked field goals, killing them. Yeah, again, sometimes it's like that in seasons where you just continue to have struggles like that. And right now for the Saints, it's the blocked field goals that are killing them. All right. Moving right along. Ben Hoff says, public shame me, Lou. I started playing Madden after it was 23-3. No, you're fine. I mean, these things happen. It's a situation where at the game, you thought the game was over. Now, had you been watching Panthers football all season long, if you had been watching Panthers football all season long, and even last week, you would have seen them have this lead. And this is the MO of the Panthers. Remember last year, they would get up big on teams and they would struggle with teams. So, to put them away. So this isn't something that is all that different from that we saw last year. Mindraw says, come on, LT, it's okay. We act like we didn't see your botch. It's all good, man. You know, I make mistakes, and I'm willing to own up to those mistakes, man. I I was out of control right there. I was just trying to get up here all quick, fast, willy-nilly, and I had to pay for it. Sin Day Co says, by the way, what's going on to take the long pauses out of my name, bruh? Like Texaco. I understand that. I made a conscious decision the minute you decided, hey, put some respect on my name, bruh. The minute you decided that it was Sin and you wanted to spell it out and you wanted to put the pronunciation up there, that was the minute I said, all right, fine. I got you. I got your Sin Co. I got you. So I get it. I know it's just Sindeco. I get it. But from now on, you are, and from that point forward, you became Sindeco. Maybe one day I'll say, you know what? All right, I'm tired of being an ass. I'll just call him Sindeco. But that time hasn't met me yet. So right now, yes, I know the stream is extremely laggy right now. I don't know what is going on. I'm looking at my connection and it's really bad. I'm looking at it and it's fluctuating like crazy. I'm hoping that it just rights itself, but it's acting a fool right now. So I'm hoping that you guys can see me and you're still getting the content, but right now it's really, really bad. As a matter of fact, I hate to do this. I see a whole bunch of comments, but I'm going to go ahead and let me see if it's, I'm going to go ahead and end this thing because I'm dropping frames like a madman over here. So in any event, Saints don't get it done. They dropped to 4-6 on the season. Panthers do get it done. It was not pretty. They started playing the clock instead of playing the Saints in the second half. I think the injury to Ryan Khalil had a lot to do with their decision to be a little bit less aggressive in the second half. In any event, they were able to make the play late when they needed to on a crucial third down to convert, to keep the football away from Drew Brees until 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter. And so that was a huge conversion there. But Panthers get the win, 23-20 on Thursday Night Football. They go to 4-6 on the season. Saints drop to 4-6. And if you're a Panthers fan, the injuries have to concern you. But you get the win here. You want to see a huge streak by them. But I'm going to tell you right now, with all these injuries, they got a tough-ass schedule. You heard the schedule. Oakland, at Seattle. I know they got the Redskins on a Monday night in Washington. It's not getting any easier for the Panthers. I just don't see a big-time run coming this season for the Carolina Panthers. Saints, again, last week was a big loss for them because, again, they had a chance to get over 500. And instead, they dropped to below 500. This game puts them now 2 games under 500. Seems like the Saints do the same thing every year. They start out slow, then they scratch and claw their way back to 500, only to fall and falter back under 500 again, and that's what they're doing this season. So that's going to do it for me. Like I said, I am dropping frames like crazy. I'm probably lagging ridiculously, so I'm going to end this thing now. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room on the Louie Tee Network. Thursday Night Football overtime. Remember, we're changing the game one live feed at a time. I will see you on Sunday. Remember, no lockdown coverage this week. I'm on a bye week.